Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Black Founders Symposium. We're so thankful you could be here with us today. I'm Ryan Nece, Managing Director of Next Play Capital. It's around here somewhere, but I'm so happy I could be here with you for the next 20 minutes or so. We just need your eyes, your ears, and hopefully a little bit of your attention. I'm excited to share a message with you on this keynote presentation today. And as I think about all of you across the nation and maybe even some of you international, we're all trying to strive for greatness. And this is a phenomenal opportunity for us and for you to hear from some great speakers today and throughout this entire symposium. So hopefully you get a chance to truly lean in and find ways to get better today. I mean, that's what life is all about, right? Is finding ways to get better. And if we can find ways to continue to huddle up in our community with great organizations like Microsoft and find partners like that are finding ways to champion making a difference, we're all gonna, make winning plays. So when I think about winning plays and I think about my career and the opportunities that I've had over the course of my history, playing in Super Bowls, playing in Rose Bowls, getting an opportunity to build a startup company and be acquired, getting the opportunity to invest in some amazing founders and some amazing venture funds. One of the things that I've constantly tried to do is find keys to success. I've tried to use the network of individuals and companies and others to try to continue to find ways to get better. And one of the things that I've noticed that's a common trait, whether you're an elite athlete or you're an elite founder or you're an elite investor, one of the common traits is thoughtfulness. Thoughtfulness is something that I think a lot of people confuse and maybe carry a connotation that's somewhat soft or watered down, but thoughtfulness, I believe, is a superpower. Thoughtfulness and individuals that find a way to be thoughtful about the way that they go about their days, about the way that they speak, about the way that they work, about the way that they try to accomplish the task that's in front of them, to me, end up on top. To me, find a way to strive for greatness. To me, are proven winners time and time again. And so let me give you some context, because I started to lean in and tell you a little bit about my background, but many of you don't know who I am. And so I thought it might be important for you to see a little bit of my history. And my history is rooted in sports. And so when I think about how I grew up, I had an opportunity to see my father, Ronnie Lott, play at the highest level. My father won 4 Super Bowls. He had a phenomenal NFL career, played at the highest level and competed at the highest level, and was considered, and some consider him one of the best NFL players and definitely one of the best defensive players of all time. He's in the Hall of Fame. So growing up in that environment, I was spoiled. I was seeing my father play at that top level and getting a chance to really engage with him and learn from him and be around other men that played at that high level. And therefore, I planted the seed in my own mind that it was possible to also play in the NFL. I played college football at UCLA. Go Bruins for everybody that's out there. Clearly, I was a traitor in my family. If any of you know that my father was a Trojan, and so it definitely has created a heated rivalry in our family for me to go and be a Bruin. But nevertheless, I had a chance to play there for 4 years, was a captain during my time. As I said, I got a chance to play in a Rose Bowl, a Sun Bowl, a Cotton Bowl. I think we went to the Toilet Bowl one year as well because we were not very good. But nevertheless, it was a great experience. It also led to the opportunity for me to go and play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I got a chance to go and play in Tampa for 7 years. My first year, as you can imagine, that's why I got the Lombardi Trophy right there as well. Wow, my rookie year, we won a Super Bowl. And getting a chance to, again, line up and huddle up with men that play at the highest level, that is something that I'll never forget and truly a life-changing opportunity. So much so, if you can imagine this, out of all the men that have ever played in the NFL, my father and I are the only father and son in NFL history to win a Super Bowl in our rookie year. We were actually the only father and son at all to ever win a Super Bowl, and we welcomed the Greasy family and the Long family. Howie Long and his son Chris Long had won a Super Bowl as well. So we welcomed them into our club. But needless to say, playing at that level, competing at that level, taught me a lot of lessons. Also, while I was playing, having a father that played in the league, he was always on me about life after sport. And when I think about what this next slide will show you, you kind of will see why I was playing. I had the opportunity. Clearly, I went to UCLA and played football for the Bruins. But even while I was playing, I took classes at Harvard. I took classes at Stanford. A lot of these programs, these executive business programs, were offered to NFL players to go and continue to learn. And I was always curious and trying to find ways to get better and continue to push myself academically. I knew that there was going to be life after sport, and I knew I needed to prepare myself. And so when I was done playing, I then transitioned, worked in a family office for a few years, had a chance to get that experience as an investor. But I had a friend from business school ask me for help with an idea. That's him and I on stage pitching our idea. We created a mobile video company called Straightcast Media. We built that company for 4 years. We slaved away at finding a way to continue to move the ball forward with that company. And looking back, I promise, yeah, no doubt, I would rather run down the field over and over and hit 300-pound linemen again and again and again than have to deal with those early days as a founder. It's hard, it's daunting, it's trying and frustrating, and needless to say, it takes its toll on you. But we found a way to battle through it, and we ended up getting acquired by Fox Sports. And after that acquisition, my father and I actually came together, and we realized that there was an opportunity, to address a need that we were seeing in our community. We saw that there was a lot of folks that were trying to invest in technology, invest in venture, and invest in this asset class. And many of them didn't have a seat at the table. Many of them didn't have access to the best venture funds, nor did they have access to the best venture companies. And they were putting a lot of money to work. And so, and losing it in a lot of ways. So we said, look, why don't we find ways to come together, use our knowledge, our network, our experience, and huddle up again to solve a need and give our community the opportunity to invest in this amazing asset class with some amazing people. And so we started NextPlay, and we created NextPlay with the opportunity to find ways to bring a lot of amazing people together. And when I think about the next slide, it really just shows somewhat of our history. We founded the firm in 2014. We're based here in Silicon Valley, right here in Redwood City. Right now, it says 180 million. Now we've pushed that number close to 250 million. We've raised 3 core funds. We're in the process of raising technically our 5th fund as well. But really, it's been built around this unique network of having a diverse LP base. 75% of our LPs are minorities, 60% are Black. We've been fortunate to invest in some amazing technology companies. And we've been very fortunate to invest with some of the world's best and top tier access constrained venture funds. And that combination, that I like to call it my 3-headed monster, of finding a way to serve that 3-headed monster and bring value to them on a daily basis, is something that we really strive to do. And you'll see the companies and firms that we've invested with over the years. And on the next slide, you really can see that. And you can see the companies that we've been able to really lean into, and some amazing logos on there that we're very, very, very proud of. These logos represent men and women that have embarked on something that they probably thought was possible, but many people around them told them that it was impossible. And yet they've continued to strive and continued to make a difference. And I look at the firms on the right, and the firms on the right are some of the world's best at what they do, of identifying and sourcing and picking and winning opportunities to support these amazing founders. And that arena is the sandbox we get to play in now. And that's been really important for us. And it's allowed us to put some meaningful points on the board. We've had to create our own scoreboards now that we're no longer a part of sports, but no doubt we continue to compete and continue to push and continue to strive for excellence. So much so now that we've had an IPO every single year since we've started. We had 3 last year. We'll have 4 most likely at least this year. And that hopefully will become the new benchmark as we continue to push. But when I think about measuring success, it's easy to focus on the accolades and the trophies and the awards and the benefits. We all know that. But now I want to slow down. Now that you have a sense of who I am and where I come from and my background and the chairs that I'm getting to sit in now, I want you to hopefully understand a few things that I think will be important to you along your journey as an entrepreneur, along your journey in life, as we all are competing in this game of life. And one of the first questions that I would ask you is, how do you measure success? And I think we oftentimes measure success the wrong way. And what I mean by that is, like I said, we measure success oftentimes by maybe the followers we have, or the money in our bank account, or the pats that we've got on our back, and the awards or certificates or trophies or records we've broken. And that's wrong in my mind. And I say that because I think the true measure of success is how well you bounce. And what I mean by that is, oftentimes, I don't know where you are in your life or what stage you are in your company, but oftentimes we get knocked down. And I think the delta between how we get knocked down and how far we bounce back up, that's the measure. That's how we should measure success. And I say that as a reminder to know that when you do get knocked down, when you are faced with adversity, when you do fail, that's your chance to really push yourself to succeed and get back up. And I'll tell you, I quickly learned playing football, you're going to get knocked down a few times. Hopefully I knocked down more people than those individuals that knocked me down. But getting back up was an important lesson. And I've learned it in business and I've learned it in life. There are variables that come in that are out of our control that can send us in a direction that is extremely challenging. But nevertheless, our ability to pivot, our ability to continue on, and our ability to bounce from that situation is extremely important. And I think about adversity. And this next slide shows me, number 56, lined up to Derek Brooks, number 55. And this picture I found because it was really important to me. And Derek Brooks, he's in the Hall of Fame, was captain of our team in Tampa. He taught me a really important lesson about adversity. And when we would play, oftentimes, if your offense turned the ball over, they fumbled, they threw an interception, something happened negatively. And they did that in an environment where they put the defense in an almost impossible position to prevent the opposing team from scoring. You were really pissed off. You were frustrated as a defense. And time again, I'll never forget, you would see our offense turn the ball over in that type of situation. And you could almost feel the air come out of the defense on the sideline. Because the reality of keeping a team from scoring a touchdown and they had the ball on the 10-yard line or kicking a field goal was almost impossible. And it was always in those situations, Derek would sprint onto the football field. He'd be the first one there. And as the rest of us would come to get in the huddle with him, we'd all be reluctantly going out on the field, heads kind of down. Our body language just wasn't right. And it was always in those moments that he would look at us and he'd go, "Men, this is an opportunity for greatness." And he would try to shift our mind to look at the situation, the adverse situation, as a positive. What could we do right then to find a way to create greatness? This was an opportunity for greatness. Because what he was telling us is, if we can find a way to rise above and create our own turnover, get our own interception, force a fumble, prevent that team from scoring, It would actually lift ourselves up. It would be deflating to our opponent and give ourselves the edge. And it was that subtle mindset of his confidence, of recognizing that the people around him, his team, needed something of inspiration. And as I sit here and think about you as a leader, as a founder, there are going to be times where your employees, your co-founders, your team may be, frustrated. They may feel a little bit deflated. The environment around them could support that. But that's when you as a leader need to find ways to lean in, identify that this is an opportunity for greatness, and convey it in a way that gives them the hope and the belief that it's possible. And that was a huge lesson for me. And so much so, one of the things that I've also watched over the years, being around elite athletes and amazing founders, is I've also learned that, I look at the next slide, I'm going to ask you all, and I can't quite see you, so you got to work with me here. If I asked you all to raise your hand, and I'm assuming that you'll raise your hand if you want to be successful. And I'm going to raise my hand because I want to be successful. And I think every time I've asked this question, almost the entire room or the entire screen in the many of the cases that we're in now has said, yeah, I want to be successful. And that's true. It's very true. It's why you raise your hand. But I think, again, it's probably the wrong question. Because if everybody wants to be successful, and every time I ask this question, everybody raises their hand, well, why aren't we all successful? And success, obviously, like I said, is measured differently. But why is that the case? Well, I think it's the case because it has nothing to do with want to. I think it has everything to do with, are you willing to? And so the better question to me that I should ask is, are you willing to do what it takes to be successful? Are you willing to put in the time, energy, effort, dedication to the craft, to the work, to the job, to your team, to your spouse, to your partner, to your friends, to everything around you? Are you willing to do what it takes? And that's a question that really only you can answer. You can only answer and have to really, truly be honest with yourself. Because like I said, everybody wants to, but in my mind, not everybody's willing to do it. And that's okay. That means you have to maybe redefine what you think success is and then pursue what you're willing to do. Because the reality is, when I think about this next slide, the easy part in life, the easy part really is setting the goal. I used to have this coach all the time, and he would say, what's the first step of building a house, men? And guys would go around and he would say, the foundation. And some people would say, getting the materials. And some people would say, laying the blueprints. And then he would stop us and he goes, the first step to building a mansion is seeing it in your mind. Got to see the goal, got to see the dream, got to see the company, got to see the need that you're meeting in your mind. That's the first step. Can't do it. Can't move on without that. But that's the easy part. The hard part now is, after you've seen the step and we've seen the goal and we've seen what we're trying to accomplish, now I have to ask myself this question. How much pain am I willing to embark on? How much pain and how much suffering do I really think that I can handle? Because the success and the goal is the easy part, but defining how much pain you're willing to take on, most founders, most people have never thought about that. And I think it's extremely important to understand that, because I promise, as a former professional athlete, as a founder of a company, and now as an investor in a number of companies, there are people that are so talented, so amazing. I am blown away on a daily basis when I interact with folks. But oftentimes, they lack the ability to understand the sacrifices that are going to be needed to go and accomplish what they think they're trying to go out and get done. And the reality is that's another point that where you need to truly be honest with yourself, having self-awareness to understand that pain threshold. Because too much is given, much is required. And I'm sure you guys have heard this before, but I know my grandfather used to tell me all the time, Ryan, if it was easy, everybody would do it. It takes so much work. It is so hard, but yet it's possible. And I think it's possible because I think a lot of times you have to also understand you can't do it alone. Cannot accomplish it alone. And you got to find the people that are going to be in your huddle. And there's a question that we ask a lot of founders oftentimes when we're trying to do our diligence to understand who people are. I like to ask them, who's in your starting five? Who's in your starting five? Who do you get to huddle up with? Who are the 5 friends that you spend the most time with? Who are the 5 best customers? Who are your 5 best investors? Who are your 5 best board members? Who are the 5 individuals that you're trying to lean on or competitor? All of a sudden, you can get a really good sense of who someone is. You can get a really good sense of what a company looks like based off of really understanding who they're spending time with. And to me, that's been really important in my career and others as I think about their success, who they're huddling up with. If you're huddling up with other men and women that are pursuing excellence, that are striving for greatness, that are understanding what it takes to go and win and committed to building phenomenal companies, all of that's going to rub off on you. But if you find yourself in an environment where you're around individuals that are negative, that are doubters, that are not aligned with your goals or your dreams, your ambitions, oftentimes that can be a hindrance and that can derail you. And, I think about when we used to be in training camp, and I'll never forget Coach Gruden coming to us. This is probably the 3rd week of training camp in Florida in the summer. And if any of you have ever been in Florida during the summer in the middle of the state, it's awful. It's 100 degrees, 100% humidity, and it's just beating down on you. I mean, you're at a point where you are extremely exhausted. You're tired, you're frustrated. And he would come to us, Coach Gruden would say, hey, if you're tired, if you're sore, I don't want to hear it. And if you're miserable and you're negative, fake it. Be positive, because misery loves company. And we've all been in those rooms where all of a sudden somebody says, I'm tired, or this is hard, or this is frustrating. It starts to snowball on itself. It starts to all of a sudden go, yeah, I'm tired too. This is hard. But if you're in another room, in another huddle, where people are saying, you know what, we're going to figure this out. Yeah, there's an opportunity for greatness here. It can shift the way that everybody's thinking. So you need to check and make sure you figure out who you're huddling up with, because I believe that's a recipe for success. And as I sit here and talk with you, I have shared with you a few stories and a few principles that I've learned over the years of observing other individuals that pursue excellence in their life. And there really are 4 takeaways that I think, as I want to share with you, of ways to be thoughtful about your craft, thoughtful about the way that you're pursuing your dreams and your goals with your company. And the first is we all have to, and I say this because these are things that I tell myself all the time. We all have to learn how to get lost in the details, get lost in the minutia. It's the details, it's the small things of the daily repetition of doing things over and over and over every single day and incrementally getting better. When I think about you sitting in this chair, every day, every time you wake up, you have a choice. You got a choice right there in that morning to say, I'm going to get better today or I'm going to get worse. You never stay the same. And the way that you approach getting lost in the details, finding a way to do 1%, 2%, 10% better than you did the previous day will exponentially move you closer and closer towards your goals. That I've seen time and time again. I've seen great athletes go out hours before their craft and practice on the fundamentals, practice on the little things over and over and over again, like they were doing it for the first time. That allowed them to be set apart. And I think about one of the other things I've learned over the years. Principle number 2 is your inner me is also your biggest enemy. And so when you think about your decisions and the choices you're making as a leader, you need to figure out, is that your inner me? Is that your ego? Are you doing what's best for you as a leader, or are you doing what's best for the company? Finding a way to separate yourself from what the inner me is telling you, and oftentimes maybe your ego is telling you, is also equally hard to do. But the great founders and the great leaders find a way to separate that. They find a way to pursue something bigger than themselves. And I'll never forget, I'm a big fan of the military. And for any of you out there that have served, thank you for your service. Grateful for your service. I had a chance being in Tampa to go to MacDill Air Force Base over and over again. That's where Special Commands is ran out of MacDill Air Force Base. And I'll never forget, I had a chance to interact with this Navy SEAL and had all these awards and medals and stripes, and just had accomplished so much in their career. I was blown away at the stories this person told me about what they had done to serve and protect our country. And I asked this gentleman, I said, tell me about a time you were going to fail. Tell me about a time you were going to quit. I want to know what happened. How did you push forward? And he told me this phenomenal story about him being in BUDS and boot camp and down in San Diego, out in the ocean in Coronado Beach. And they were in the water all day long. He said it was 4 a.m, early in the morning. They were literally climbing out of the water and like crawling up the beach, shivering. And they thought that their session was done. And he said, as he was getting to his feet, he was so cold, his hands were shaking, and he couldn't even unfasten his life vest. He said mentally, it was right at that moment that he knew he was done. He said, if I was asked to do anything else, I was going to go and ring the bell. I had nothing else to give. And he said, literally at that moment, his master sergeant said, back in the surf. And he said, I was done. He said he went to turn to go and walk out and go and ring the bell. And it was right at that moment he saw the other men that he was responsible for in his little group. And he said, as he looked at them, he realized, you know what, if I quit, one of them are going to quit. And he said, one of the guys put his hands on the shoulder and said, you can't do it. You can't quit because I need you. And he said, wow, it was right then that he got back in the surf and continued on. And what he reminded me is, when we focus on our own pains, on our inner me, and on the things that are taking us down, we can get worn out. We can get tired. We can get to a point where we want to give up. But when all of a sudden we shift our mind to thinking about something bigger than self, it's our coworkers, it's our company, it's our family, it's our country. Maybe it's your faith, maybe it's your God. But when you shift your mind to playing for something bigger than yourself, you can do things far beyond what your mind could ever imagine. And that, to me, is such an important lesson. And the other lesson I think is also equally as important is we have to learn how to embrace failure. If we're going to go out and embark and try to change the world, like many of you are, well, that's going to come with great risk. You're going to fail. And your ability to fail and not allow it to affect who you are, not allow it to take you down and allow it to say, I'm a failure, or I'm not worthy of this opportunity. But to use those as lessons to get better, to use those as opportunities to continue to improve and refine and pursue your goals is extremely important as well. Sometimes we face failures that are in our control, or sometimes they're out of our control. But how we respond to those is the most important thing that we can do. How we continue to bounce and continue to pursue the things that are important to us is another really important lesson. And the last one, as we sit here in this forum and in this symposium, I think we all recognize we live in a world where diversity matters. Diversity truly matters of bringing diverse thoughts, diverse individuals, bringing all of us to the table together to find ways to be huddled up, listen to our differences, listen to unique perspectives, but then work towards a common goal. And that to me is something that's a recipe for success. And I've seen it because I've been fortunate as an athlete, as I've said, and you've heard me say it time and time again through this, about being in a huddle. When you can truly come together as a group, as a team, as individuals, as investors, and bring unique perspectives, sometimes to a point though, setting aside our differences to come together united and focus on a goal together to go out and accomplish and do something that's truly amazing, that's truly transformative. And being able to find the men and women that you can huddle up with that come from the other side of the tracks, that come from an area that you're not familiar with, is extremely important. But it's easy to ask for others to join you. The question I would ask too is, are you willing to join others? Are you willing to go and lean in and listen and hear and learn from others that you may not agree with, that you may not like? And I'll never forget, and I talk about him sometimes like I know the guy, but one of the things I respect about Abraham Lincoln is one of the things that he did when he became the president is he filled his entire cabinet with men that actually opposed him, that were his enemies, that he ran against, that talked negative about him, that didn't like who he was, didn't think he was deserving, but he decided to be a leader, to represent his country. He needed all those perspectives at the table so that he could hear and understand what all the needs are. That to me is a true sense of a leader, an individual that can take in all that information and then hopefully make decisions that are in the best interest of the greater good and that represent something that's much bigger than self. And lastly, as I think about where we're all trying to go and what we're all trying to do in this journey of life, I share this last picture of Jackie Robinson, not just because he's a Bruin, he was a Bruin, not just because he was a baseball player and a football player and a track star, phenomenal athlete, and not just because he's remembered as being an individual that broke the color barrier in Major League Baseball as one of the first Black professional athletes in baseball. But I put him up here because he played to be remembered. And the thing that is interesting about this entire journey of life is sometimes the opportunity and the doors may open for you, not because it was in your control, but it might be just the right time. It might just be the universe conspiring on your behalf. But once that door is open, once that opportunity comes, are you playing to be remembered? The reason we also remember Jackie Robinson is because he was the baddest mofo on the baseball field. He stole more bases, he hit more balls. The guy was just a phenomenal athlete. And playing in the most adverse situations, trust me, they weren't throwing him the best pitches or giving him the best calls. Pretty challenging environment he was in. And yet he still continued to play at the highest level and out-compete everybody around him. So as I sit here and think about this symposium, I'm so grateful that I could be with you today, this morning, and share these words and share this wisdom. But the last thing that I just challenge you, and that I hope that of all the things that I've said today, I just challenge you, play to be remembered. That's the next play in life. Be remembered. Be remembered by how thoughtful you are with the way that you go about your days, the way that you act, the way that you speak, and the way that you interact with others. I promise you, if you're thoughtful, you'll be remembered. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here with you today. And I look forward to the universe conspiring on our behalf for our paths to cross. God bless you and best of luck upon this journey.